Hey guys, it's the AK Geek here, and today I'm going to do a video on what is probably my favorite handgun of all time. That is the original CZ-75. Now, this particular model in front of you is a restored CZ-75 Pre-B, as it's commonly called over here in the United States. This is a 1987 pattern of CZ-75. Note, I did not say CZ-75B. That is because this particular model lacks the firing pin block safety that will come on later CZ models in the early 1990s. This is an authentic Cold War CZ-75 that I got recently, and had some work done to it to restore it because the original finish on it was pretty beat up. The original enamel paint that came on the original CZ-75s is not the most durable paint in the world, and as it ages, it tends to flake off and peel off. Again, not the most durable stuff in the world. So I recently had a Cerakote job done to this one and had some of the internals polished up, the sights repainted, and I think it's a pretty good looking gun, and I'll show you a little bit more of it here in the next couple minutes. But just to give you a brief overview on the CZ-75, the Czechs throughout the Cold War really weren't very fond of being under the Iron Curtain's thumb, and the Czechs basically said, you know what, if we're going to be involved in this, we're basically going to fight tooth and nail to do what we want to do, and that especially was true in the world of small arms. The Czechs were known prior to the Soviet occupation as being good arms developers, and even still to this day, they still produce their own arms for their own country. Whereas the Russians had the Tokarev TT-33 in the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s, even going up to the 60s and 70s, the Czechs decided, no, we're going to make our own 7.62 25 chambered pistol. They had the CZ or VZ-52. In the 1980s, instead of adopting the Makarov, they said, hey, you know what, instead, we're going to create our own, and it's the CZ or VZ-82. 9x18 Makarov. Now, in the 1970s, the Czechs were kind of in the mood to do something similar to what the East Germans were doing, and that is they wanted to export arms to bring in some more capital. And they figured, okay, let's come up with a pistol that not only some COM-block nations might be interested in, but also let's get something something that the West would be interested in. Let's develop it in a Western caliber. And so they eventually decided on modifying and combining a few different designs. Most notably, they took inspiration from the SIG P210, specifically for the inverted slide rails and also the linkless locking mechanism, which in turn came from the Browning High Power, but if you actually look at the internals, the CZ-75 locking mechanism is closer to the SIG than it is to the Browning. But I would say that the CZ-75 is mostly a combination of the SIG P210. It has the ergonomics of the 1911 and copied the magazine from the Browning High Power. Now, something to take note for pre-B CZ-75s, if you happen to see one on the market, the biggest thing that I have to let you know about right away is the magazines. Current CZ-75B magazines will not always work in pre-Bs. I would argue more often than not they will not work. This particular gun came with a B magazine. That's what this is right here. It's made by Metgar, and who does create most of the magazines for CZ. And this did work in this pistol prior to the refinishing, but since also a little bit of the magwell was also coated, that makes the magwell a lot tighter, and the magwell in this gun was particularly tight to begin with when I first got it out of the box. So typically what you'll commonly hear is you have three options for reliable magazines. Well, really four. One, you can find pre-B magazines. Good luck, they're usually pretty expensive. Number two, you have options such as this 10-rounder, which CZ still does make, and this works perfectly fine. It does have a little bit of a polymer base plate here to give that full extension, so it will fit in full-size grips. Again, you are limited to 10 rounds, but I'm willing to make an argument that most people who are buying classic CZ-75s, they're not buying them for defensive use, they're buying them to be a collectible, so I don't really think that's big of an issue. The third option is, I believe, original SP01 magazines will work in these. Those are the extended 18-round magazines, and they have pretty similar dimensions to the original CZ-75s. And one of the telltale signs of identifying a magazine that should technically work with the pre-B magazines or Cold War era CZ-75 mags is if you'll see this little indentation here on both sides of the magazine. And the other option is, again, if your gun does not take B magazines, is there is a modification you can do on the inside of the gun. You can Dremel out a section on the inside that will open up the mag well a little bit and will allow you to run B magazines. I will leave that decision up to you whether or not you want to do that. I'm not the most proficient with Dremels, so I did not decide to go that route because I did not want to screw up something on an original gun that is no longer being produced. So just to show off a couple of the unique features of the gun as it originally came out of the factory. This has a black Cerakote finish on here that is fairly close to the original enamel finish. I did opt to keep the trigger polished, and the guy did recommend that Cerakote the barrel. I do kind of wish that the barrel itself, take the magazine out first, I do kind of wish that I would have kept the barrel chrome as well, because I think that would have matched up a little bit better, but it is what it is. I did opt to white out a lot of the original factory markings. I did take inspiration from Military Arms channel on that. He has a video where he had similar work done to his CZ-75, and that's what inspired this build. The grips are not original. It did come with original grips, but unfortunately in the process of getting this gun Cerakoted, the guy who did the work for me kind of thrashed the grips, but that's okay. These grips aren't that different from the originals, and I think it still looks pretty slick on the gun. Got the sights repainted. These did come with original 3-dot sights. And like a lot of classic CZ-75s, this is a single action pistol, or double single action pistol. So when the hammer's down, pull the trigger, pulling the trigger back will also move the hammer, and every subsequent trigger pull will be a very nice, crisp single action. CZ-75, next to the 1911, is the most copied pistol design in the world. And that is largely due to the fact that copyright infringements or copyright laws can't really apply to a design when the design itself is a classified military secret, which it was in the former Czechoslovakia, which that country no longer exists. And since that it was not protected under copyright, because of that reason, so many nations copied this. You have CZ-75 variants made in Israel, made in Italy, Italy most notably being the largest copier of this pistol and exporting guns under the name 10 Foglio, which the Israelis copied a lot of those guns and eventually created the IWI Jericho, which I have a 90s model of the Jericho as well. And speaking of 10 Foglio, that's actually what this magazine is. This is a pre-B compatible magazine for the CZ-75. Again, as you can identify by these markings, by these ribs here in the magazine. This is a old school Metgar magazine that I got on Gunbroker for a steal, because pre-B magazines do go for quite a bit of money. And I don't think the guy who was selling it really had an idea what he was selling, or else he would have marked it up quite a bit. But I got it for a killer deal. But yeah, that is my restored CZ-75. The ergonomics on this gun are second to none. It beats the 1911 in my opinion. The grip is more hand-feeling than the 1911. The trigger, in my opinion, is close to being on par, if not good, to a decent 1911 trigger. I'm a huge fan of it. The sights are really nice, actually. They are really, really nice. It has a 4¼ inch barrel. I believe these guns typically clock in like around 39 ounces, something around there. It's a full steel frame gun. Shoots like an absolute dream. And you can still find pre-B CZ-75s out there, Cold War CZ-75s, because I kind of have a little bit of a personal collection for personal fondness for comblock pistols. And I got Makarov, Tokarev, and the Cold War CZ-75 was at the top of my list. I really wanted to get my hands on one. Now the fact that this is restored and a really clean look, I don't have an issue with it. There are some people out there that would have said, you should have kept it in the original finish, would have kept it original. Yeah, but at the same time, it was in real rough condition, and honestly, it was not really anything pretty to look at. And I think after all the work that was done, I think this looks 10 times better. It shoots really good. All the internals are polished. It's as smooth as glass. It's a really good shooting gun. So there you go, guys. If you're looking to get a pre-B model of CZ-75, I hope this was informative for you. Typically, these can run anywhere from about $550 to around $600. That's what mine ran me. Mine was about $540 on sale. And I got a really good deal on the Cerakote job. It was only about $200 from a local guy nearby where I live. I think it turned out really good. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them in the comment section down below. And as always, have a good one.